You might be thinking the title is clickbait, but that's not entirely true. Jagex's CEO has just announced a concrete plan to roll back major MTX elements, including Treasure Hunter. In today's video, we'll explore what this means for the future of microtransactions, as this isn't talk anymore, change is coming. And it's coming soon. Whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax, and enjoy. In his first appearance, the Jagex CEO, Mod North, mentioned stepping off the gas for microtransactions. Now, I didn't actually think he was going to follow through, but today's news post and video drop proved me wrong. At least for now. Let's start off by talking some of the MTX data Jagex has shared from their MTX server. Yes, you heard that right. They actually shared MTX data with us, the players and customers. Very surprised there. 42% of the people that completed that survey, which is probably in the tens of thousands, feel microtransactions currently detract from their experience. I would have personally expected this one to be a little bit higher based on what I see in here, although that being said, it's nearly half of the active player base. As for ex-players, 60% of them say microtransactions detracted from their experience. Or in other words, it's clear that from this data, it may have led some people to quit, or at the very least, it likely played a role in their decision to leave RuneScape 3. Now the next data point, and I'm assuming these are cherry-picked by Jagex to get their point across, but still, 86% of players who buy microtransactions mention being unhappy with the mechanics of Treasure Hunter. 86%, guys. That's a majority. That's nearly all of the players buying microtransactions. That could be okay. That, you know, is that players that buy bonds? Is that rune coins? Is that still? That's massive. Now I wonder if this has recently changed and increased that percentage, and if this has a role in the reason MTX revenue is going down year over year. Unfortunately, we don't know the split of bonds, Treasure Hunter keys, rune coins, packages, direct purchases in this entire chunk or slice of revenue. But I wonder if players getting more and more dissatisfied with the amount of Treasure Hunter promotions, or the low odds of getting things, the not so much value, seeing less value in Treasure Hunter keys, has a role in the reason MTX revenue is going down year by year or year over year. The final data point shared in the post is that 63% of ex-players said they would be more likely to return if Jagex addresses key concerns with XP-related MTX. That's a massive amount of players. I don't think they would all follow through, but this is a sizable portion of players that Jagex shouldn't ignore and isn't ignoring, as you'll see when we go through the action plan and the experiments. This has to do with the fact that Jagex is even willing to address this. These are potential customers they can re-attract to the game. Now, beneath the data points, it's mentioned that this will be difficult and it will take time. There's a lot involved, and doing it responsibly while sustaining the game is going to be difficult. This is the one time I'm going to be a little bit more patient with Jagex, and you'll understand why as I go through the rest of this information, because surveys can only get you so much information. Actual testing gets you data from players that are maybe a little bit less vocal or just didn't want to complete the entire survey. And that's why Jagex is going to do some MTX-related experiments in the live game. Now, each of these experiments will have communication before and after once they collect the data. These experiments will last anywhere between 1 and 14 days, at which point they're going to gather the feedback and eventually give us a follow-up on what the event did. The first experiment happens in July, and they're going to completely disable Treasure Hunter, which will directly cut into their MTX revenue. Props to Jagex for even willing to try this, because this is going to cost them money. They will turn off Treasure Hunter and instead only offer bundles of stars and knowledge bombs for direct purchase. These bundles will be capped at 1 per day, so you'll still be able to direct purchase, a solid amount of bonus XP and knowledge bombs, but you will not be able to use Treasure Hunter. The second experiment, which will probably happen somewhere in August, will be a double XP event where you cannot use any MTX related items. So no proteans, no skilling dummies, nope, none of that, which I do think is going to suck for some people that really wanted to progress with their saved up proteans, the regular ones that is, because you can use those during double XP. Now, I understand that, and honestly, if I was going for max, I would be pretty disappointed right now, and for good reason. I mean, these are items you've collected, maybe you've even paid money for them, not your free daily keys, and now you won't be able to use them during double XP, which you can, at which point you can use them to get the most out of them. That sucks. I think this is going to be tough, but I think it's going to give Jagex some really relevant data, I think people like what proteins do, not what they are and where they come from, which I think is what the main problem with proteins and scaling dummies is. They take away from demand, and they have an influence on the price of certain things that are used for these skills. Whatever comes out of these experiments, data-wise, if they're going to propose a final approach that excludes some of these items, for example, the end of proteins or scaling dummies, they will allow for sufficient notice for you to use anything you've stored up. Okay, personally, I would like to see some kind of trading option for oddments or cosmetic currency, or even like a third of the XP these items give for handing them in and then instantly destroying them, because otherwise people that have saved them up or people that have spent money are going to feel like they've missed the early bird bonus, or they're gonna be mad. I'm really interested to see what kind of data and information we're going to get as a follow-up from Jagex from this experiment. This is probably the most interesting one in my opinion. The third experiment is a cosmetic mega drop where they'll offer a large selection of past cosmetic overrides, including some only available for Treasure Hunter for direct purchase all at once. This one may be controversial as well, but basically what this does is test if direct, purchase is a better way of selling cosmetics and other things instead of gambling for it, which is what I would think is the preferred way of doing things. It just feels significantly more fair. Now, there's also going to be a fourth experiment somewhere between August and September, being cosmetic free worlds. Kind of speaks for itself what this is. Less visual clutter, perhaps an enhanced authentic experience. I think they could just introduce these straight away. I don't see why they necessarily need to test this personally. They could just add a single cosmetic free world for the players that, want to have that authentic experience. Although, I'll be honest, some outfits just don't look very good, which is why you override them, or they just don't work well with your capes or other cosmetics. Now, while Jagex says that these are supposed to gather enough insight, there is a chance they'll need to do more experiments, which they are going to communicate to us clearly and openly, according to this post, throughout the entire process. One thing they're not going to do is use this opportunity to be more aggressive in offering XP benefits outside of the core game loop. I'm really glad this is in there. They also mentioned we will not introduce our final proposed changes without showing them to us first. And communication, I quote, "We will not go silent on MTX at the end of this process. The era of this being a taboo subject for us is over, and we will continue to invite community feedback on how we approach MTX going forward. Now don't worry, if they aren't going to live up to this, I'll be sure to mention it in a drama video somewhere in the near future." Now, for this process, they need everyone's voice, which is what they're saying, to give them constructive feedback. So please, if you're going to say something about this, give them constructive feedback that they can use for proper change. Now, I'll admit, I'm approaching this one with some skepticism. Jagex doesn't exactly have the cleanest track record when it comes to promises and transparency. We've heard big words before that never really materialized, but this time, I'm cautiously optimistic. These changes, even if experimental, aren't just for show. They come at a real cost for Jagex in the short term. Removing monetization features like Treasure Hunter, even temporarily, directly impacts their bottom line. So I have to believe they've run the numbers, done some serious analysis behind the scenes, weighing in the loss of MTX revenue against potential gains in players' trust, retention, and even returning players. One thing that really stands out to me in this post in the video is the absence of a new monetization alternative being announced. That silence is quite telling, and honestly, encouraging. No mentions of Hero Pass or Battle Pass returning. So based on what they said they won't do, I get the sense we might be seeing straightforward, optional purchases in the future. Maybe things aimed at players who are happy to spend a bit of money but don't have the time to grind everything out. They seem committed to not going silent throughout the process, which is something I'll believe when I see it, but I do have to give them credit. If you told me a year ago that Jagex would be trialing revenue-losing changes like this, I'd have laughed it off. It does make me wonder about the long-term vision. What's the end game here? Could this eventually free up developers working on microtransactions, cosmetics related to microtransactions, to focus on more core content instead? Well, in that case, that's a future I'd like to see. So yeah, a part of me is still skeptical. But for a first time in a long time, I'm feeling pretty good about the direction Jagex is heading into. As always, time will tell. Let me know what you think about these experiments and changes down in the comments below.
We're as serious as can be about overhauling RS3's approach to monetization and creating a future where our success is measured by the size, the engagement, and the satisfaction of our community. The process of change starts today as we head towards an exciting new era for this beautiful game.